Today, we're diving into the world of limitless adventure with Jamie, also known as Captain Manicorn, a man who truly lives life on his own terms.
But what it would say is quite simple, is that motherfucker did that.
He's a world traveler, a disciplined athlete in air sports, and not afraid to take risks to engage in fantastic and unique adventures.
I guess it is kind of crazy if you think about it, knowing that we have the highest death rate in the world and we still, actively seek to do this sport is kind of crazy, huh? But maybe there's something to be said about something that has such a high risk. The reward must be just as high, huh?
But it's not only about adrenaline. It's about crafting a lifestyle that balances discipline, adventure, and purpose.
And I was like, if I keep doing the sports that I'm doing, I'm going to make a mistake and I'm going to die.
Personally, Jamie's story left me rethinking what it means to truly live, and I hope that will have a similar effect on you as well.
And again, that's sobriety and dedication, the working out and the training and all those things, and having 20 friends die in the sport that have led me to this thought process.
Stay tuned. You don't want to miss a second of this episode.
Let me tell you a fun fact about our podcast. We're at the beginning process and you can have a tremendous influence over our channel. By just liking and subscribing to our channel, you'll help us increase the quality of the videos that we're creating. Also, you'll stay in the loop with the new videos which are coming every week. Thank you and enjoy the episode.
So welcome, Jamie. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, man, this is the most anticipated episodes that I ever had. Like, I've been looking forward to talking to you for a long time. So yeah, thanks so much for taking the time and making this happen.
My pleasure. I hope you enjoy our environment. We are currently in Chile, and one of our friends that we met, somebody through a follower, offered us to stay at his resort kind of place, and it's a dome. So we're basically in a dome on the beach in Chile. So it's not a bad place to hang out and talk to you.
Oh man, it's fantastic.
It is.
So I've been listening to a few of your episodes before, and one thing that struck me, is that you seem to be a very deep and very wise person. And that's something truly interesting because that's not the first thing you'd think about somebody who does what you do. So I want to talk just briefly a bit about how do you manage to build this mindset that you have, and how is your upbringing, and how did you get from where you started to where you are now?
That was a lot of questions at once. Break it down a little bit. Let me ask you a question though. What was it that you would assume doing what we do, that we're not deep and methodical? What did you think we were like? I guess
the first thing that would come to mind would be that, there's somebody who has very little concern about their well-being and somebody willing to take risk without thinking too much about the well-being of themselves. That would be the first thought that would come to mind.
Why? Is there a persona? Is there like an image in you think in the world that we're just like wingsuiters are kind of reckless, base jumpers, we're just kind of like adrenaline junkies, and we're just out here getting high on adrenaline?
If you think about from statistics standpoint, base jumping is the sport that kills the most people per practitioners, right? So just from that perspective, being part of it would seem like somebody who's just willing to take unnecessary risks.
I guess it is kind of crazy if you think about it, knowing that we have the highest death rate in the world and we still, actively seek to do this sport is kind of crazy, huh? But maybe there's something to be said about something that has such a high risk. The reward must be just as high, huh? So it's one of those things that's progression over the years. It's not something that obviously that we ever want in our sport for people to think that we're reckless. It's actually a very calculated sport, and it takes thousands of jumps to get where I'm at. Skydiving for smaller suits before you even think about stepping off of a cliff. And then, as time gets on, you progress to more technical. I would use the word technical because it's a lot of numbers and math and experience and knowledge that led us to be able to get to this point. So I think that's, never judge a book by the cover, right? Unless it's,
I fully understand that. And I want to ask you, do you think that there is a specific type of persona who would enjoy this kind of sport? Because I look around and see guys like Tom Cruise or Felix, I can't remember his last name, the guy could jump from space. And, I think of those guys and it just makes sense to me. But like when I talk to other people, it's like, I would never do that in a million years. Do you feel like it's typology of person who's more likely to be able to undertake those sports?
I think it's more of like a community, when you are growing up. Like you're either a kid that wants to sit and play video games all day, or you're a kid that wants to go out and build a tree house. You either go to the beach and you want to play in the sand, or you're a kid that wants to go get smashed in the face by waves, right? So I think extreme sports in general, and don't get me wrong, I built tree houses and played video games, right? But the point was, you're either somebody that wants to, like take a beating from life and experiences, because experiences hurt, yeah. Or you want to watch it on TV. I guess that's a better analogy, right? So for me, sports, and I think for Tom Cruise and a lot of these other people, we want to experience something that's the same as somebody climbing a mountain, who wants to climb Mount Everest, or somebody who wants to accomplish climbing K2. It's a personal battle. I don't think we approach it like, here's Mount Everest, I'm going to conquer this motherfucker, and I'm the best in the world. I mean, some people might who have money or whatever, but some of us, I think it's the journey to understand ourselves. And these sports allow us to be put into situations where we have to challenge our own thinking. And when you arrive at the exit, you've gone through a journey in your mind of hours, usually on the hike, and you've had to come to grasps and acceptance, and you go through a whole range of emotions before you arrive there. Hi, sorry, we got Journey just walked in. Hi, Journey. Good morning. Was your run nice with mommy? Oh my God, you're dirty. You need to get outside. Sorry, it's always chaos here. So for the viewers out there, Journey is our 3-legged dog from Albania, and she just got back from a run, and she is completely covered in dirty, sandy mud running through the house. And that's our life. So back to, so when you arrive at this this exit, we call it, because you're exiting the cliff, I think that you have had to do a therapy session, if you will. In that hour and a half, the deepest questions you can ask yourself: why am I doing this? Do I want to do this? What am I doing this for? What's the reward? Those questions that you said that we would think reckless and we don't have value for our life. I think it's actually completely the opposite. I've just spent the last 2 hours thinking about who I am. Why am I doing this? What do I hope to gain from this? And I think that in today's society, with work and all the rush of what's happening, I don't think that most people have the ability or time to really to question their own existence like we do as athletes. If you're surfing out to a big wave, or you're climbing a mountain, or you're ice climbing, we're consistently put in a situation where we have to question our own existence. And that to me is deep. That, back to your original, that, we are, philosophical and all of these different things, methodical, and all these other things that come from the time put into the sport.
That's a really good point, and I would like to get to that a bit later on. But one thing else I want to ask you, for you personally, the fact that this sport that you do and also the experience are so unique, because not many people have the courage to do that, is an attractive factor. It's like the only person can do that, or just a very, very small percentage of people on the planet will get to do what you do.
Hell yeah. Of course. Like I'm a narcissist by nature, of course. So of course I love the fact that a lot of people can do this. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. 1 second. My wife, she's doing yoga in the background. Okay. All right. So of course, no, I think that it's always nice doing something that you just can't throw money at, right? That it takes time and energy, and it's an art. An artist can't just throw money at a canvas and call it art. An athlete can't just throw money at the sport and say, that you're good at something. But today we have these things called wind tunnels. So you can throw money at it. You still have to put the work in, but you used to, like skydiving industry, you used to have to go out and do a skydive progression, which is amazing. Gave us wind tunnels. You can do in 1 minute, you can do the equivalent of a skydive in a tunnel, and you don't have to repack your parachute, do canopy time, do any of these different things. You can focus on the discipline of the whatever your discipline of skydiving is. So now, years ago, we had this thing called the wind tunnel for wingsuiting. So now people could literally go skydiving, a handful of times, and they could go into a wind tunnel, put a wingsuit on, then they could get a skill. But that you can't cheat wingsuit base jumping, because at the end of the day, there's no simulation for jumping off of a cliff with a piece of material in a straight, putting your body into a straight jacket and knowing how to fly this. So that's where the I think the cool factor comes in, is that anybody you see jumping off of the cliff has put hundreds of hours into their passion, into their sport. And that deserves respect from anybody who else out there who understands what, it is to be devoted to your passion.
That's a great point. And you mentioned as well the fact that this is one of the experiences that you cannot buy. So everything else, if you go to like expensive hotels or like do expensive yachts, kind of party a lot, you can buy these experiences and those can be replicated by some other people who have the same amount of money or similar amounts of money. But when you have an experience that requires a lot of skills, that becomes something unique. And then you can have this opportunity to live a unique style. Or you see things that not many people will get to see. And that's truly extraordinary.
I always think it's interesting because, we travel the world, and we are tourists, obviously, right? And, our goal is to set a world record to, fly parachutes in every country of the world. But along that journey, it's like we take it a step further, because I think what makes our experience unique is the air sports community. Just for example, the person whose house that I'm staying at right now, this dome, is a paragliding pilot. And he follows our channel, and he saw that we were in dunes in Concon, which is these massive dunes in the middle of a city. And we were soaring these buildings. And he reached out and said, "Hey, I see that you're in Chile. I want you to come. Let me host you at my place for a couple of days." So that, experience. And then when we get here, we're not just on the ground hiking or spending money on a boat to go look at something. We're flying. So we're seeing this topography from a perspective that very few people even get to see it. So it makes it kind of even a unique feeling when we're flying. To them, it's their local spot. They see it every day. But to me, I'm blown away at the experience that we have everywhere we go, because we're taking off from some launch and we're paragliding and soaring and looking around the beaches, or we're jumping off of a mountain, or we're jumping off of a bridge. And it's like a visual experience from a different perspective. I think that's one of the coolest things about what air sports in the air sport community has to offer.
Absolutely. And mentioned something truly interesting about this community, and I've experienced something similar within the skydiving community, is this kind of sense of brotherhood. And everywhere you go into the world, if you visit the local drop zone, you're going to meet people that are going to be super friendly towards you. And besides the sport in itself, I think this is a great international feeling to have.
There is a community in every one of the sports. So paragliding, I speed fly, I base jump, I wingsuit, I skydive, I paramotor. I pretty much do all air sports. Yeah. So when we get to a location, it's not one community. It's starting to be a polyathlete breed of air sports athletes. So you have base jumpers, which are kind of doing their own thing, but some base jumpers paraglide or speed fly. Some paragliders maybe go skydive, right? So there's very few of us that do everything. But by me doing all of these different things, it typically allows me to go further into the communities, because it doesn't matter the community that reaches out to me. I can go play with them at their level. So like we're going to go skydiving last weekend, we're going to land on the beach. Great, I can do this. And then we're going to go soaring on a 15-meter wing with 30-mile-an-hour winds. Great, I can go do this. Or we're going to go jump off a bridge, or I'm going to try to jump off a moving train next week off of a bridge, right? Like, that's great because I can do this. Or if we're going to go wingsuit down in Patagonia, that's great because this is what we do. So people are able to say, "Hey, I have friends that do climbing." And you're like, fantastic. And then when you get to those friends who climb, they're like, "Hey, check out this area." And then, "Hey, I have a friend who flies." Great. And and then, so that's the magic of the community. But you can't just say, okay, you have to actually go take these people's advice and go meet their friends, or go to these locations and climb and do these things. And then people are legitimately excited for you, and they want to share more of their community and their culture with you. And, obviously I like food and these things, but we're not here to see cities. We're not here to take, tour buses through cities and learn about the history of their culture. We're here to see the mountains and the oceans and things like that. So it's a really unique set of minds that help guide us through our journey.
You mentioned in other podcasts that I listened to that you could have a goal medal of partying as a young adult, right? You mentioned that to grow up in a very tough environment. I want to kind of understand the change point, the shift point from the moment when you're kind of like in this environment, you're using a lot of drugs and you kind of like having a disorganized life. How do you get to be such a deep person, such an organized person, such a person that, takes everything very seriously and takes the mission very seriously?
So I'm going to say your question back. So how do I go from doing drugs and partying to being so serious about my sport? Is that summarize the question?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Well, I think that the majority of people out there are not separating the two. So I think what we're talking about is clarity, right? And when you get into, you can do majority of the sports out there, and even the sports that I do, on drugs. I know many people that party and go wingsuit base jump. I know many people that party and do all of these sports all the time. And ironically, you would think that we would be a lot clearer conscience kind of community, but we're not. And in fact, it's actually kind of a toxic community, if you will. Most people who are in our industry are drug addicts or alcoholics. And that's from climbing to paragliding to all these different things. So I think that there has to be something within you to know, like for me, it was obviously prison for 4 years. And I knew that when I was skydiving and I was going to the boogies and parties, I knew that I was going down a road that I'd already been down. So it felt familiar. And the drugs and the cocaine and the molly and the boogies and the parties was starting to simulate the path that led me to prison. So I decided to leave America because I'm weak. Ultimately, I knew that I didn't have the self-control. I knew that I wasn't going to go to AA or NA or any of this other shit, that I was going to keep partying and keep doing drugs. And we were getting to the point where we were just like, we were seeing the glitch in the matrix, and our minds were, not, cohesive anymore. And we were just, snorting cocaine from Castle. Like we were just out of control. And I was like, if I keep doing the sports that I'm doing, I'm going to make a mistake and I'm going to die. So I left America and went to Norway back 5 years ago. And I had to literally leave my entire environment, and I think it's huge what our channel represents is not sobriety. It's not sobriety that we're selling, because obviously I still have a drink or a beer, or once in a while I'll party. It's about taking yourself from a toxic environment. And ultimately for me, as much as I love skydiving, it's a toxic community. So ultimately, and that's for me, not for everybody. Some people can go to the drop zone, but ultimately that's bullshit, because we have a fucking thing called a beer light at a drop zone, right? So when you're done skydiving, like everybody's excited because there's a beer light that goes on that you can start consuming alcohol there, right? And if you're there on the weekends, the thing is that everybody's working, and then they're there for the Friday and Saturday, and they want to get fucked up. And you want to have a good time with your friends. And for somebody like me who's an addict or an alcoholic or whatever it is, that's a dangerous environment. So I moved to Europe and got into more mountain sports, more of the climbing, more of the speed flying, more of the wingsuit base jumping. And that took me away from organized sports and put me into the mountains with other like-minded people that were trying to understand themselves a little bit better. And over the years, all those hikes that we have talked about, hundreds, 1,000 hikes by now, you have to ask yourself a lot of questions. You have to be honest with yourself. So for me, I can't be around a paragliding club very long. I can't be around skydive drop zone very long. I can't be around, because that's for me is like, that's where my addiction is waiting for me, because I want to party with everybody. I want to have a great time, and everybody, so that was what led to more of the alpine wingsuit base jumping, being as far into the mountains and as far away from people as possible to follow my dreams. And that led me to be healthy. So and now to bring that rant full circle, if you will, my desire to do alpine wingsuiting is greater than my desire to get fucked up. So I take myself out of those environments on purpose, and I spend hours, like 2 to 3 hours a day. I just ran for a couple hours. Then I had work this morning. I had to write posts. So I create an environment now where I can't get messed up at night, because I won't be able to do what I committed to doing the next morning. And I define addiction by, if you make a commitment to do something and you decide to have a beer or smoke weed or whatever it is, and that decision leads you to not fulfill your commitment, in my opinion, that's addiction. So I try to put myself never in a situation where I'm not going to be able to follow through with my commitment. And that's, for me, is what sobriety means. not perfect. I fuck up still, obviously, but 99.9% of the time, I'm pretty much on this path.
I will take a quick break from this show and talk about a real powerful tool. It would only take 20 seconds and then we'll get right back. System.io is an all-in-one marketing platform that comes with email marketing funnel, building website, membership site management, and a lot of automation capabilities. Traditionally, if you wanted to build a website, you'd have to integrate and pay for a lot of additional tools, but System.io brings everything that you need in one powerful dashboard. You can start for free, give it a go, and discover all these capabilities mixed into one platform. Check the link in the description to get started. And now, let's get back. So it seems like you're not looking for sobriety, you're basically looking for a different purpose, which kind of implies the fact that you have to be sober nor be, or like most of the time sober, nor be able to fulfill that mission. I got it correctly.
I think that I'm a very fortunate and unique individual. Obviously, nothing I'm doing is not attainable by everybody, but I have one gift is like, I don't have any other purpose in life. Like, I don't wake up today and I ponder like, oh, do I want to make more money or I want a nicer house? I live in a fucking van, man. I have a tent over my head. I sleep in a tent. I poop in a bag. I pee in the wild. And my only goal is to go on adventures, not to have a house, not to start a different business. So, for me, my goal, my dream, my path, my career is very defined. And I don't have to waste a lot of energy. I don't want kids. I'm not trying to. I have been with my wife for 15 years now. So I'm not looking for random pussy. I'm not going out there trying to sell something or do something. My only goal is to go on an adventure. Today, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're probably going to go flying later. I don't know where. And then I'm going to meet with my friend, and he's going to put down a bunch of pins on a map for me because we're in South America. And he's going to say, you should go here, here, and here. And I'm going to decide of those, based off of the weather, where I'm going to go. You can't beat that high with smoking dope anymore, or smoking weed, or having a beer. There's no way to substitute that high for me. So that's, why would I get high when my life is just awesome? And what am I, there's nothing like a rock star, right? Like they're usually something's broken. They're on tour. Like people don't know how hard rock stars work. Like they'll do 57 shows in a 60-day span, and they're on tour buses, and they're just, night to night, and they're traveling and making distance, right? And they're substituting that time for addiction and the party and the like a bartender working at a bar who drinks, right? Like, so the sports that we do creates me to want to be sober.
Oh man, I really love this line. Why would I get high if my life is awesome? It's just great.
Yeah, fuck my life.
Yeah, it's a great summary. It's like, yeah, if you have everything you want and if you live a great life, you didn't need that pain. But I want to ask you. You mentioned that your one gift is to engage in adventures. How did you get started with air sports from the beginning? Did you knew from the beginning as a kid that you want to do that, or it happened on the way to come and get involved in it?
I've been riding dirt bikes since I was 4 years old. My parents, they're blue collar workers. My dad's a correctional officer, lieutenant, Ironwood State Prison. Ironic because I did prison time myself in a different state, obviously. But my parents, luckily, my dad was into hot rods and dirt bikes. So they got me a dirt bike at 4 years old. And that was actually the stimulus, what would it be called? The catapult into my extreme sports world. There was no normal. So baseball for me, football for me didn't really cut it, right? So I was in like karate, and I kind of ditched that even. And dirt bikes always caught my attention. And then I didn't know about this air sports world, but I saw this movie with Sylvester Stallone, Cliffhanger, right? Written by John Long, who's an epic climber. And during the movie, there's these two bros for sure. And it could have been a Mountain Dew commercial. It was so bro-ish. But these two dudes jump off of this cliff, and they I see a parachute, and I'm just like, what the fuck is that? I'm a kid, yeah. So I already love climbing. I love climbing. I love that, that kind of stuff. And then I saw these people jumping off of a mountain and deploying a parachute, and I was like, what? So it wasn't till years later I kept riding dirt bikes and climbing, and that was kind of my thing. And then when I got out of prison, I went for a tandem. I was just like, I booked myself a tandem, went by myself, and it was like love at first sight. And then I took my little brother for a tandem to share that experience with him for his 18th birthday. I'm 11 years older than him. And he was like, whoa. And I was like, yeah. And so we basically, to get into air sports, we were poor at the time. Obviously, I just got out of prison, right? And I had no money. I had nothing. I was working for my uncle delivering medical trays to hospitals. and I was cage fighting the other 6 hours of the day. So training and stuff like that. So it was like this slow transition where, skydiving was expensive, and it was 14 years ago, 12 years ago, 13 years ago I was started. I don't know, 2014 and then 2012. So 12 years ago. And I think it was like, what is it, like $299 or $199? So you have to pay the initial like jump. It's like two, whatever it was. It doesn't matter. The numbers don't matter. But the point was, it was a lot of money to somebody who didn't have a lot of money, and you had to do it. And I started in Paris, which is in California, and Matt Blank was my instructor. And I just remember, like, my brother, it was only him and I in this AFF class. And if you don't know who Matt Blank is, you're a skydiver watching this, he's a fucking legend, OG. He's been doing cool shit before cool shit was on YouTube. So he's like, why do you want to skydive? I'm like, I want a fucking wingsuit base jump. He's like, whoa. He's like, we can definitely get you there, but there's a couple things you have to do first. And safe to say that I rushed the progression of the sport quite a bit, but I had one intention. I wanted a wingsuit base jump since day one. So along the way, we didn't have any money. So we would literally go like in our sport, it's all about currency. So you have to do this thing called AFF, which is Accelerated Freefall Program, which consists of 25 jumps. The first 11, I think, are with you have like an instructor holding on to you, and you're really working with them. And then you have a set of jumps that you have to do with an instructor, but they're on the outside giving you drills to accomplish. So when you get to the 25th jump, you're allowed to go by yourself. But in that process, you have to pay $200 or $299 or whatever it was per $199. I don't remember what the number was. $199 per jump. So that took me 30 days usually to save up for, because of food. I'm from LA, so you have rent and all these different things, and life is in full session. So I would wait till like the 29th day, and then I would go to the weekend and do my current jump to get there. And so I got like 3 done over a 3-month period. And then we ended up starting this company called Color Fun Fest, and we moved to Texas. So then I had to go out there, and of course, like the first class I take with these guys, I'm a spaz when it comes to sports. So I failed the first one of my AFF with these guys because he was giving me some signal, and I didn't know what it was because they didn't give it to me in Paris. It just keeps giving me the signal. I'm like, I don't know what you're telling me, man. And he gets down and he goes, I was telling you, I don't remember what it was, like, I don't know, to do something. And so I failed it. I was like, okay, well, cool. So then obviously we did a couple more like this, but then our business took off actually. So this is like 6 months in of like 1 jump per month, even during the move. We were on like welfare, man. So like we were eating food stamps from the government, kind of hard to just, like saving up everything we could to go do this one skydive. And then we're taking money from the government to eat food stamps on the other hand. We're living like 4 of us in a house in Texas. We moved our entire life out there to start this business, borrowing money from our parents, and then like I'm sitting there taking what money we have left and putting it into a skydive. I look like like an idiot, right? Like that's not something like a reasonable person should be doing with what little money they have when they can barely afford to eat. But welcome to being a skydiver. So, and all of a sudden we threw this event in Phoenix, and we went from, having no money, being poor my whole life, being a street kid, growing up in group homes and foster care and all that bullshit, to all of a sudden we made like $60,000 in the weekend from the event, right? And I remember just being like, pay the rest of my AFF. Like, didn't care about nothing. I went back to Dallas. I paid my AFF. I went out there and just started smashing it. Bought myself like a $9,000 rig. All of a sudden, I had some money. I never had money in my pocket before. So now all of a sudden, I'm out there skydiving every weekend. And then our tour, what happened was it was a really cool experience. So our tour would take us to different states. Like we were throwing 23 different events a year around the country. So what we would do is we would go out, fly to these locations. And since I own the company, we would always communicate like where we wanted to go, because we were always poor kids growing up. So if we wanted to go to Florida, Miami, we would go book a venue in Miami. If we wanted to go to Alaska, we would book a venue in Alaska, because then the company had to pay for our entire travel to get out there. And then when we were out there, we were done throwing the event, we would stay for an extra couple of days and go do a skydive or go to, do experiences like that. So I had found this hustle within my own business to be able to go, experience these cool different things. And then like maybe a year into it, we were exhausted because we were throwing 20 something events. And basically what happens is you fly out on Wednesday, you get to the venue, you work and you're setting everything up logistics wise. My wife did all the marketing. My brother did all the logistics with me. My dad was part of the business, and you would show up, and then by, Friday, everything has to be set up because Saturday morning you're throwing an event and there'd be 10, 15,000 people there. This is happening every weekend. So we would finish cleaning up Saturday, Sunday night. We would be done. Monday morning, we'd be flying back to the airport. You get home, take your bag of clothes, and, you basically throw them in the wash. And, and then we were paying rent on this house, and we would just get back on the plane. It was killing us, man. We were exhausted. I was getting fat, because you're just eating tour food, and it was good food. Yeah. But it's not healthy food. It's rockstar life, man. It really was, and then, you add in having all this money for the first time. It was too much for somebody who had nothing. So my wife had this good idea. She said, like, let's get rid of the house. Let's just live, get a motorhome, and let's just travel to, we'll plan the tour and we'll travel by motorhome to all of the destinations. So then, so we basically got rid of everything. I didn't sell anything. I have no value for possessions. So I just gave everything away to my brothers or whatever, got rid of everything. My parents actually let us use their motorhome for the first time to we had money, so my dad wasn't worried about it at the time. Before that, I would have never borrowed shit from him because I would have destroyed it, but he knew I could have bought 10 of these things. So he let me use his motorhome. We got rid of everything. We took all of our sports gear, and we had a little trailer behind the motorhome with a little, like, a sand rail in it and a dirt bike and, and skydive gear. And we were already paragliding by now and having fun doing things like that. And we basically started doing this tour that we had been doing before, but flying. Now we were driving. And the thing about a drop zone is they're super hospitable, and you can arrive there on a Tuesday and they have showers. There's Wi-Fi. There's people skydiving. There's a place to camp. So we were getting this cool experience where everywhere we were going around the United States, and this happened for years, that we would show up and we would get to go skydive for a couple of days. Sandra would do logistics. I'd go, jump. And then after the event was over, we'd stay there and we would do a couple, hang out with these guys and party with them. And then we were on the next city, and we were doing this for a couple of years. So we went to probably 50, 60 different drop zones throughout America, meeting people and, jumping different drop zones. And so that was a skill set. I mean, imagine every weekend having a new landing to have to, so hence why I got good at landings in, tight places or different, things like that. I was able to meet great people to get my pro rating so that I could do demos into events and stuff. And these relationships, I still keep tabs with almost everybody, and they're all skydivers. So it was a great community. And then along this tour, you start to hear about these things called boogies, which are essentially every year those drop zones throw their own parties. And it's basically just, the great skydivers come out, and you're supposed to be able to do these camps, and you progress your skills, and you're around other great skydivers, newer people that have been in the game for a long time. And it's a great environment. But then there's this like subculture of drugs and alcohol and sex that are just, it's part of that as well. It comes with it. Like there's no separating it. Like if you go and you do all these different things, at the end of that, there's going to be a great party. And if you take my past in my environment, and now all of a sudden I got money, man. I don't just buy a little bit of drugs. I bought the drug dealers' drugs. Like I wanted all their drugs, right? So, but it wasn't like, the thing was, it wasn't during like the week that we were partying like this, because we had events, we had shit we were doing, run a multi-million-dollar company. It was on those boogies, it was on those weekends, but it didn't matter because over time, everybody who would see me on this tour, this circuit, they just saw me partying. And they didn't care what I was doing to how I got there. It was, you're just judged by your appearance at these events. So even though I was a good wingsuiter, I was good at these sports, there'd be some boogies I wouldn't even skydive. I'd be there just to do drugs and party, right? Because it's a great environment, and that's okay. That's part of the culture. That's cool. I love it. But at a certain point, when we were throwing these events, I took that trip to Norway. And there we were skydiving, and I was part of the Team One Call, which is a pretty cool team of wingsuiters and doing air sports in Norway. And I was also part of the speed flying team. And I just realized like the cultures were completely different. They weren't there. Like they're still doing drugs and drinking, don't get me wrong, but they were taking their athletes differently. They looked at their athletes differently. And I was like, oh, this is cool. That's why I never came home, because I thought if I'm going to make a living in this sports, I have to be somewhere in the world where they appreciate us. and don't, it's not just a hobby, because in America, it's really hard to make a living doing these things if you like as a wingsuit base jumper, because it's not that many places that are accessible to do it. And you can make money as a tandem instructor or AFF instructor or camera, person, but to make money as like a professional athlete, like you got to be pretty much on the Red Bull team. And I'm not really Red Bull material, yeah. So, which is cool. I like that, right? Because we did it our own way. We made our own money. So Norway allowed me to see that if I wanted to do this, that I was going to have to give up that life of, again, it reminded me of like prison. If I wanted to have that life, I had to give up my old gangster ways. Now, if I wanted to have a life as a professional athlete, I was going to have to give up that drop zone life and that accessibility to all the alcohol and the drugs. And I know there's skydivers are out there who are going to get bitter. It's not about that for everybody. Fuck you. I'm not talking to you then. I'm talking to the people that know what I'm talking about. And it's called, it's the boogie circuit. So it's a reality. So that was the transition to how I got where I'm at from where I was and how I got in air sports.
Just a quick break as we have a special surprise for you and your loved ones at Infinido. We will offer a 20% discount on our career assessment program. If you or someone you love feels stuck on the career path, we are here to support you. This session includes a questionnaire with 75 questions to help you figure out what to do based on your personality, skill set, and interest. After that, you'll have a coaching session to understand the result and map out the plan moving forward to understand where you are and where you need to go. Make 2025 finally a successful year by making the shifts that will put you on the right path. Check the link in the description to find out more.
That's a very fantastic story. And I want to ask you as well, like from skydiving, how did you transition to base jumping? Because, skydiving is it's much more advertised business in its own terms. So it's more available all over the place. But base jumping is a very narrow community. Like how would you transition from the skydiving to base jumping community?
It was a narrow community. You used to have to get a mentor. That was before my era. I was able to pay somebody out of the Pine Bridge, Idaho, Tom Aiello. He was the only instructor back then. This is 12 years ago. I think it was like $1,500. I knew what I wanted to do, so I reached out to him and told him I had like 70-something jumps. And I had already done the flight 1, 2, and 3, which are canopy courses, which you learn the canopy skills. So he said, fine, come on out. And so I think I had like 75 jumps when I got there. And I threw money at it. And in our sport, the instructors, good or bad, will take that money because they need money, and they'll teach you how to jump off a cliff at the end of the day. So that's how I transitioned. But then it was like a little bit longer after that. Then it took me a while because I wanted to wingsuit and I didn't have the skills to wingsuit. So I really wasn't too interested in the base jumping part back then. I went and did a big wall course in Brento with a onesie. But that really wasn't my get down. My get down was to wingsuit. So I kind of rushed it. I probably had like only maybe 25 base jumps before I put on a wingsuit in Norway. And I was here to wingsuit. So that was over a couple of years of those jumps too. So it was like not that many. But when I started wingsuit base jumping, I had like 1,000 wingsuit jumps. So that was over a couple summers of living at Z Hills and banging out jumps when we had the money. Because when we weren't throwing our tour in the summertime, you don't throw events. It's too hot. People don't go to these events, right? So we would live in Z Hills, and you could do 100 jumps a week, whatever. Because I had 2 rigs, so you could pay packers $6 or whatever it was, and you could literally do 10 loads a day. 7 days a week out there. And it was fantastic. So you could do that for a summer. And some of the best wingsuiters, Travis Mickle, the kid, were part of my crew. So we had just an amazing group of athletes who I could just go play with all day long for entire summers. And that's how I got my numbers up. And then after that, I asked them, we were on a trip, I think in Panama. And I was like, hey, do you guys think I'm ready to go jump this wingsuit off of the cliff? And we've been doing acro. And they're like, yeah, and because I could fly my suit any orientation, head down or whatever, I could fly a wingsuit. And that was why I made the conscious decision to start wingsuit base jumping, is because I felt confident that I could fly a wingsuit. I'd done 50 hot air balloon jumps, gainers, flips, all kinds of shit. I knew that no matter what axis I was on in my body in a wingsuit, because I also free flew every day, which is like without a wingsuit, just flying artistically. I knew I could do that well, and I could fly a wingsuit. So it was time for me to put on to go put a base rig on and go jump off a cliff with it.
That's a fantastic story. I want to talk a bit just about the fear element, because when you start to skydiving, it's a very scary sport, but you have a reserve parachute, and like even the worst case scenario has a backup plan for that. And it's very rare to have like somebody who dies from an accident. But when you go to base jump, you only have one parachute, so you're gonna have to treat this more carefully, and also I presume they have a different degree of fear, and you also have to take this more seriously. And also, as we discussed from the beginning, you have to accept the possibility of something goes wrong. How was that transition from skydiving to base jumping from a fear standpoint?
I mean, I think fear is an emotion, yeah. So if you can identify why you're afraid and what your fears are, then maybe you can work on those things to eliminate that. So if you don't understand what's happening with a canopy or a container or the deployment sequence, then you can work on it. Use skydiving as a training grounds to do that. And I think a lot of us do for who are base jumpers. We use skydiving because there is the room for error. We try to eliminate most of the things that we have fear of as far as gear, before we arrive on a cliff. So the fear that I think needs to be separated here is there's always a fear that you're going to, maybe I wouldn't say fear, like you're only afraid while you're hiking, right? Or gearing up. When I push off that exit, there's no more fear. Like you don't have the mental capacity to be afraid anymore. Like your mind shifts, right? It's like a Formula One driver or somebody who does another extreme sport at a very high level. Like you can be nervous. I would use that word for fear. You could be nervous, but if you did your job correctly on the hike, you're going to identify everything that you would be fearful of, and you're going to have to deal with those things in your mind before you get to putting on your wingsuit. So when you put on a wingsuit and you're standing on that cliff, I've dealt with all of those things that I would be afraid of. And now I've come to the term of acceptance. I accept that there are things out of my control that could happen, but statistically, the gear is never at fault. Like 1 in a million. It's always pilot error. All fatalities are because somebody got too close to the ground. Somebody packed their shit wrong. Somebody, made a judgment error on, the conditions. They got flat. They stopped flying their suit, whatever it is. So statistically, that the gear is going to work if you do your job correctly. So now we're tying in sobriety. Why do I want to be sober? Because I don't want to have a fatality be an excuse, part of, Jamie got fucked up last night. He was doing coke and Molly and he packed his shit wrong. That's not what I want to ever happen. Or he made a judgment error. I'm not saying I don't make judgment errors. I like to fly proximity. So obviously, but I try to leave margin of error. I have a rule about 90% of the time that I try to leave it out. Like, meaning if I'm flying a proximity line, I don't go actively look for lines that require me to be 100% committed that I can't get out of this terrain. So when I approach a proximity line, for me, because I love my life, we've talked about this, I don't want to die doing this sport. I try to fly proximity lines that I can fly terrain on one side, but if I don't like what's going on, I can pull away from the wall, right? And I have a room for error. There are other proximity flyers that like to go into a line where there's no outs. They have to fly this at 100% performance if they want to live. So I try to not do the latter of the two. 10% of the time I do like a good proximity line that, has that if it's epic. I do like going through narrow lines. I do like going really close to the ground as fast as possible. But when I do that, it's for me. And that's the difference. I think that it's when I fly those lines, it's because I've done it 10 times and I'm ready to lower my altitude to get to that point. It's never the first time. It's not because I saw a video and saw somebody else could do it. I have to fly it myself and understand it and work my way into that terrain. And when there's, again, technical stuff as we approach it with speed. If we're flying like shit and we approach a proximity line, then there's a good chance you're going to die because you don't have any energy. But what you don't see is how much energy we're building. And when we dive at this ground, we are forcing our wingsuits to stay low to the ground. If I did nothing and I relaxed, my wingsuit would pop up in the air because it's just, I'm defying gravity, or, it wants to float, right? Because, I'm pushing it down, my head down towards the ground. But if I relaxed, my suit I'd go head high again, and I would start to glide more. So if you approach it from that mindset, knowing numbers, we use fly sights on our helmet so that we can know our exact distance from the rock at 50 meters, 100 meters, 150 meters. I know those numbers where I am because I've done it 100 times, and I know my worst number, I know my best number. And when we jump, we use our worst number to say, okay, that margin, knowing that the rock is at 50 feet down there's a rock that sticks out 20 feet. 100 jumps say that I clear that by 10 feet. I'm okay with that. Right. But if it says, hey, at that altitude, I only clear this rock by 2 feet, that's a different margin. There are wingsuiters out there that would take that chance all the time. Statistically, they're the ones that die, right? Because you can't get it right every time. So I and our crew try to have a mindset of let's leave that margin of error, because there is a time and a place that we push it. Obviously, on some of this alpine exits, I can't, I wish I had more room for error, but ultimately I have, 20 kilos, 40 pounds of gear in my wingsuit. I've just climbed for 2 days. It's time to get the fuck off this mountain. And so we take a little bit more chance in those environments. But there are some people that are going to Switzerland and they're taking a gondola and they're walking for 5 minutes to an exit, and they're taking 10 times more risk than I take after a project like that, because they're searching their high, their rush comes a different way. It's not right or wrong, but it just doesn't leave much room on the table for you to make a mistake and walk away from it. So our approach, because I love my wife, I love my dogs, I love my tour, is to try to find the same rush that they're getting flying 6 inches from the ground, but I like to fly 6 feet from the ground. And again, that's sobriety and dedication and the working out and the training and all those things, and having 20 friends die in the sport that have led me to this thought process.
That's something truly
90%.
That's something truly interesting, because we, mentioned at the beginning that space jumping is a sport with the highest mortality rate. But now, after you mentioned that, it doesn't seem like it's a random thing that happened. It's just somebody get pulled off the balls, like, oh, this is your name, you're gonna die. It also seems like it's a mindset and also the action that increases or decreases your chances of surviving, if I get that correctly.
Yeah, it's pilot error. It's somebody fucked up. Somebody got greedy. Somebody wanted to get closer to the ground. Somebody did this line 10 times and it worked on those occasions. And then the 11th time, the conditions are different. They didn't take that into consideration, and they made a human error. They made a judgment call that was wrong, and that led to their death. Or somebody was following them. We've had great wingsuiters who other people have died because they were following them, and that person fucked up. So now they're both dead, right? And that's happened many times in this sport. So one, you're accountable for your own life, and two, here's the reality, I love submitting our content. We make a living from wingsuiting and people watching our videos. But the truth is, people don't know when I fly 2 feet from the ground or 20 feet from the ground. To the eye, it all looks the same. It looks just as cool. So if this is my business, right? I make a living from doing social networks, also obviously other things, real estate and stuff like that. But if I'm in this for the long run, then I don't need to take those chances every day, because I know that I can create the same kind of content that's going to sell by staying 20 feet away, which means I can do this every day. It's repeatable. It's predictable, right? If I do it 2 feet from the ground, that's not predictable, right? That one day error, whether it's just a wind, updraft, whatever it may be, a thermal, it doesn't matter what it is going to set my course to death. So I like to be 10 feet, 20 feet from the wall 90% of the time, because it's a business, and I don't want to die doing my job, right? It's a dangerous job as it is. I don't need to add more risk to it.
Oh, this is fascinating. But at the end of the day, still it's a very scary sport to do. And does it ever happen to you to stay on top of the cliff and knowing that you're about to jump and to think to yourself, like, what am I doing here?
If you didn't wonder that, then I don't think that you truly would have appreciation for your own existence, right? So you have to, again, you're going back to what we originally talked about, of course, self-evaluation, what's the word?
Preservation?
Yeah, self-preservation. That's a good one. Yeah, of course we're thinking that. Why am I here? There was times in the beginning, I didn't even like base jumping. every jump I went on, I was like, this is stupid. Why am I here? I don't even want to base jump, right? But then you get to the exit and you're like, all the way to the exit. I'm like, this is retarded. But then the moment you jumped, you would be like, oh, this is amazing, right? And then I would land, and then I would have to be packing, and they're like, okay, we're going to go back up in an hour, like in Brento. And I'd just be like, man, I don't want to do this, but I know I have to, right? Because I'm part of a course or whatever it was. And I was like, I really didn't like it. It wasn't until I started wingsuiting that I loved base jumping, because I didn't really want to just jump off of cliffs for the fuck of it, right? Like I just didn't understand the risk versus reward. Didn't make sense in my mind. And it took me years to appreciate it. Like, after doing acrobatics off of the cliffs and being reckless, I would say, it took me years to come full circle to quit the sport in 2016 when everybody died. All the best wingsuiters in the world died. I was like, these guys are the best in the world and they're dying. I'm shitty at this, so I'm going to definitely die. And then I got into more the air sports like speed flying, paragliding, and things like that, which was fantastic because it gave me a couple of years to do other stuff. I still base jumped. I still wingsuited, but it was like stunts. Like, I would jump off a paraglider or a hot air balloon, or I'd go to Brento and do these jumps. They weren't like what I'm doing now. Now it's something happened when we took a sailboat. We sailed to Norway and we spent 6 months sailing up there, and we arrived at a boogie, and I was teaching one of my friends, Oliver. He saw our team, Oliver Thrustmaster Miller. Big shout out to my boy. I was teaching him how to wingsuit base jump. Obviously, I'm not qualified to be a wingsuit base jump instructor, but I got the premises of it, and we were on a big enough cliff where I could explain how to fly the wingsuit. I was terrible at exits back then. I was super head high, and I didn't even know this was a thing. That's how much I shouldn't have been teaching my friends, but I did, and we all survived so far still. And after that, something clicked. That was like 3 years ago now, and I fell in love with wingsuiting again and wingsuit base jumping again. And I stopped speed flying as much and paragliding again over the last 3 years. And I've refocused all my energy on learning how to exit, learning how to wingsuit, the numbers, the math, and that led me to some huge projects over the last, couple of years and climbing some of the most epic mountains and jumping from them. So it's been like a roller coaster from like, to being broke, to having money, to being in the scene, to doing drugs and drinking, to giving that up, to go be a professional athlete, to, quitting wingsuiting and focusing on other sports. So I've had my own journey through the air sports community.
That's fantastic. Can you walk me through the process of the hike? Because you mentioned that this is the part when you still have a bit of fear. Like, what's going through your mind? And how do you make peace with the jump?
I think it starts with getting your gear ready. Like, I think that the very first thing, it's not like we just hike. Obviously, we know of an exit, or we're finding an exit, or, opening a new exit. We're looking at data. We're looking at numbers. So we have things called lasers. This is, technology. And there are numbers that tell you the whole, the cliff going down. It tells you that if there's any ledges or anything like that. And because we have all the fly sight from our information, we can overlay that information on top of the profile of the rock. So before we even start hiking, we already have an idea of the exit. We've watched videos of someone else flying a line, looking for obstacles of things of that nature that we have to be careful of. We've looked at the weather. We can see what's coming. That we look at I sail too, so I know how to read the weather well. Plus I'm a paraglider, so there's a lot. Before I even left the car or my van, I've already got an idea of the day. I've already visualized it. I've already visualized areas that we're going to die, that if we hit the rocks here, we've already visualized, I've already thought of, not coming home to Sandra. I've thought of, these things are, so it doesn't just start with a hike. This all starts before we even decide to hike. We have to make a decision if we want to hike. Once the hike is on, typically it's game time. Like, you're going to jump short of the weather being bad, right? I mean, obviously sometimes we hike hoping to, get lucky and get a weather window, but 90% of the time I would say that once the bag's on our back, we know we're going to jump. And it's just a matter of getting up there, and that's honestly an adventure of its own, but you're really just pushing. It depends if you're in France and you're with the French people, I would say that there's not much time in your head to think about what's going on, because these people just fucking run up the mountain and you're just trying to stay with them, and you're just trying not to die breathing. If I'm leading, then I'm in my own world, and I usually have music on. and I'm just cruising it and chilling, right? Maybe in the beginning there was more self-awareness of what was happening and questions and all this and, philosophy. But again, it's like, it's scary to you. To me, it's just a day at the gym. I'm just going for a hike. And when I get to the hike, if I get to the top and I like the way it looks and I like the weather, I'm going to jump. There's no reason that I'm going to turn around. There's nothing, very rarely do I get somewhere and be like, oh, this is scary, I don't want to do it. I've had weather. I've gotten to the top of something and done this. There was a jump recently in France. It's not a wingsuit jump, so that's why I didn't talk about it. But I got to the exit, and it was a big exit. And for some reason, it scared me. I didn't want to do it. I didn't like the landing. I didn't like it. And, and Sandra was with me, and I was going to record it. And, we have a sponsorship from Insta360, and I knew I was going to get paid from it because it was beautiful and it was a beach. I was like, oh, this is a great setup for a money shot. And I just look at her, and she's like, what's up? I'm like, I don't want to do it. And then I was like, call me, sit down. I was like, all right. I thought about it, like, all right, I'm just being a pussy. Everything in this jump is within my ability. The exit's huge. The landing is, and it's small on a beach, but I was like, I don't care. I got that. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go. So I start to gear up. I'm getting ready to go. And all of a sudden, like, I get smashed in the face by this wind. And I'm like, I look down, the trees are blowing crazy at the bottom. I'm like, all right, that's the universe telling me to sit down. And that's what you have to listen to, right? So I walk away. And we have a rule in this sport. It actually started from the speed flyers in Norway, was that if you walk away from a jump, you get to have ice cream. So, yeah. So I'm a fat kid at heart, guys. So I love ice cream. So when I get to the summit, my wife wasn't let me eat ice cream. If I could eat ice cream every day, I would, but my wife will not let me. It's not good for the, my physique. But she's, so when I get up there, I'm like, all right, I'm having ice cream today. So, and it's a rule, like there's no guilt tripping at me on it. So I walked away from that jump. Wingsuiting has been there's a lot less of those situations because most of the time you're with somebody and there's a sense of peer pressure that, they're gearing up there, like even if you're both scared, you're making the movements to gear up, to get ready. And you're just kind of looking at the other person there. They could be in their head, but they're gearing up. So you're like, oh, fuck, I got to gear up. And then they're looking at you like, fuck, I don't want to do this, but you're gearing up. So they've got to gear up. Right. So whether we want to admit it or not, there's a sense of peer pressure in that environment. And people are more likely, to make bad decisions on an exit again. But if you do your homework, if you're intelligent and you have rules, like I don't like crosswinds. I don't fuck crosswinds. Like that's how people die on cliffs, right? So basically you have, the wind can come from 4 different directions on an exit. This is technical stuff. I don't know if you guys care, but I'm going to tell you. So there's one rule I have. If it's a super crosswind, which means it's coming from the side, I don't like to jump. If it's a headwind, we get a better start. If it's a tailwind and it's a big enough exit, we know that we're going to be okay. It just makes us take longer before we start flying. But if it's a crosswind and it's gusty, it can actually change our axis and you have the ability to like cork into the wall. I've seen it like on super windy days. I have friends' videos that they show me and like they like 360 almost into the wall and die because they were so greedy for a jump with a cross, and it was super windy from the coming up the valley. I don't fuck with that. That's kind of my and so I think in the beginning, my wife had a hard time with this as sport. She wanted me to quit. She was a big reason I did quit in 2016 for a while. But over time, I started making more educated decisions, and she saw that I could walk away from jumps that I thought were above my ability, or that I didn't like the wind conditions or, the weather conditions. And I started walking away from jumps, and she's like, okay, so I'm not just reckless. I have a set of rules that I follow. So if we do our homework, we have a good hike, we're with a good team of people, and we're making decisions at the exit, we're looking at the weather, we're doing our due diligence, if you will, then the wingsuiting part's easy. Yeah. Like, we leave ourselves room for error when we jump. It's, if like I said, I give myself a 30% margin of error. So I know that if I make a mistake, I'm going to probably be okay, even on the exit. Right. And then if I, during the flight, I try to fly proximity lines that I have an out 90% of the time. Sometimes I like to play dirty. And then, during deployment time, we try 90% of the time to deploy high enough where if we have something wrong with our one canopy, we have time to correct that 90% of the time. Sometimes I fuck up, I get greedy, and, things happen. But you take all of those things from the getting ready, logistics, the weather, using the hike to evaluate what's going on with weather more, talking about the jump with your teammate, getting to the exit, looking at the line, doing all these different things, and then flying the line, flying it at 70% of your ability, not giving it 100% because that's not sustainable, honestly. And then giving yourself altitude to deploy. And if there's a mistake, having time to fix it. What are you scared of? You know what I mean? Like, if you can look at it from that kind of point of view, what is there to be scared of anymore?
Interesting. Did you ever had a situation when you walk away from a jump purely on the gut feeling without having any factor that you can specifically quantify, like the wind or the weather or anything else? It's just like you had a bad feeling about it.
I will interrupt you for a second, tell you about the Mindfulness Mastery, a book created alongside my business partner Dina. This is a great workbook that will help you understand yourself better, create personalized goals, and keep track of your progress. If you want to start your progression path and improve your life, this workbook will help you and offer the tools you need. It's best to order a hard copy as it has a lot of fun exercises within and daily tasks so you can make small progression towards achieving a fulfilling life. You can find it on Amazon, so check the link in the description to get your copy.
Did you ever had a situation when you walk away from a jump purely on the gut feeling without having any factor that you can specifically quantify, like the wind or the weather or anything else? It's just like you had a bad feeling about it.
A lot of low jumps, not big wingsuit jumps. I liked wingsuit. And if I want to go jump something, typically I'm going to jump it. But there are a lot of low jumps, like a bridge that I saw the other day. Here's how I look at it. Look. We have this thing in our sport called the BFL. It's called the base fatality list. And I've walked away from a lot of jumps because somebody has to write that. So basically, there's a report in our community. You can go, it's called the BFL, base fatality list. And every death in our sport is written out in great detail of what happened, why it happened, time of the day, conditions, suits, experience, all the things that led to the death. So my biggest fear is that if I make this list one day, that it doesn't say something stupid. Like the conditions it was super gusty or windy. I know that the guys been going hard partying the night before, and they had no business being up there to jump, and they were reckless, and they, whatever. Like, so I always tell my friends, like, when we're on an exit, like, look, man, you're more than welcome to jump, but I don't want my base on my fatality list to say some stupid shit right now. Because, it was super gusty and greedy and I hiked for an hour. Like, my life's worth more than a fucking hour and a half hike home, So, and I have a lot of friends that still jump, right? And that's cool. Power to you, because we're all on our own journey. Yeah, and there's no right or wrong for anybody. But for me, I use the base fatality list to like, this is the last thing that people are going to see about me in the sport. What do I want it to say? And how do I want it to be remembered? And, like, it better be like a blaze of glory and some epic shit, not like, oh, the winds were gusty and he was, jumped off and he hit the wall and the exit. It better be like fucking fireworks and strippers and fucking, like it better be some magical airplanes flying by and like, and just weren't wrong, like, he went out like in a blaze of glory, like, like the Sundance Kid or something like that. Not like, it was bad conditions and they had off heading and they impacted the wall. And I was like, that's terrible, right? So, and then Sandra has to lead that like that.
Let me ask this question. If you had to make that list, let's just say in 100 years from now, whatever time, how would you want to be remembered?
Well, first off, if it happened now, I would feel the same as if it happened in 50 years because of what I've done, what I've accomplished. But what it would say is quite simple, is that motherfucker did that.
That's a great line.
That's it. Yeah, man. Like there's like it's so funny. It's like cliche, It's like I rode hard, put away wet, man. Like I want to be. If I get to be in my 70s and 80s, I don't mind being crippled up. Like it's okay, right? Because you can't do nothing in your 70s anyways. Like, and they have Viagra for your dick, so what do I got to worry about, right? Or like by then we're gonna have implants and things will be great. I'm hoping. I've already had stem cell. I've had a knee surgery. I'm probably gonna have elbow surgery this year. So, I've broken more bones in the sport than most. So not from this sport, luckily, but just motocross and all these other things were hard on me. So I just want people to look at it and say that he gave it everything. Like, he was the definition of adventure. He woke up every day, and we don't just do air sports. We go climbing. We do all these things. We live in a Forerunner right now. We're driving to Patagonia. We don't know where we're going tonight or tomorrow. And I just want people to look at it and say, he did it like that. He didn't waste that gift that we call life. Yeah, he had a troubled past. He might have, overcome some things, but everybody overcomes shit. So I don't even care. Like, yeah, I was in group homes. I had a rough childhood. I was in prison. Yeah, who cares, man? Looking back at it now, I think that stuff was awesome. Like, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like, I didn't get it like a normal childhood, but that makes it even funner for me. Like, I look back and say, at the time, it was shitty. Sure, I thought that my parents didn't love me. I felt abandoned. I was in therapy. I was diagnosed ADHD. At the time, like, that's the worst thing in the world. Now I'm grateful, like, 'cause my skin is thick. Like, I'm not a sensitive individual unless it's my wife. She knows how to push every fucking button I have every day. She's the only person in the world that can actually do it. I feel like I should wear a helmet around her because her only is to literally piss me off. But that's American relationship. But that's the the other secret to this is I bring her up because ultimately I couldn't do this without her. I've been with her for 15 years, and like, I think it honestly took me 6 or 7 years to fall in love with her. I didn't know what love was. I didn't love myself, right? Like, so how could I love another human being? So it's been a progression of patience from her that, and when we got into wingsuiting and she learned that everybody was dying and she pulled me out of the sport and then let me because we're a team, and she let me follow my passion to get back into base jumping. And then I was like, hey, when the wingsuiting isn't enough for me, I'm like, hey, what about climbing super technical routes with like ice climbing gear and trad gear and rock climbing, and then wingsuiting from that? And she was like, yeah, I can see how that makes sense for you, that you want to combine your passion of rock climbing now with your passion of wingsuiting. And hence we've come to this, road together. And she's super supportive, and she climbs now because she knows that we're going to do projects together. So I think that you have to have like the whole package. Like, it wasn't just one thing. It was like making money, not having money, losing all my money, investing my money. Like, now we're in a position where I'm retired. I'm 42 years old. I don't have to work. Yeah. Fantastic, right? I invested when we made that money from those runs. I invested it. And now all those investments are paying off. So we're chilling. We make our content because we want to. And we used to shy a little bit from the content we did make, from the addiction and prison and all that. But man, I get a lot of messages from people that are going through some fucked up shit in the world. And they say that our content somehow helps them. And it's not for me to decide then to stop making it. If people need what we're doing and there's a market for it and they get some sort of guidance from my fucked up past, and the things that we're breaking along the way now, if that somehow helps you, and you reach out to us and you explain your situation and what's going on in your life, and honestly, that I communicate back. I talk to everybody. There's 0 messages in my inbox of people not answered. So we heal each other. Yeah. So I get to go out and do these epic jumps. I get to make money from what we do. In return, people are inspired. They reach out and I talk to them in return, and we help each other because by teaching and hopefully sharing my wisdom. You said I was a wise person. I think that's kind of cool. I also get to grow from it because I have to reflect before I answer somebody. Sometimes I think before I speak, and I get to think of something that has helped me get through a situation that they're going through. Like, we were at a dinner last night, an example, and one of our friends, she's going super anxious. She had to take a pill because she has anxiety from the businesses they're building and the work and everything she's doing. And I had to, I was communicating with her. I'm like, what is it that you're anxious about? And I was like, these things that you're doing, you want to do them. You chose to do these different things. It's not like you're missing a leg or you're in poverty or you're fighting slavery or, like you're being, crucified or something like that. Like, everything that is in your life is because of choice. So what is it you're anxious of? What is, and we got to go through what works for me, working out, like I said, for 3 to 6 hours a day. Or my wife was telling me how she used to get, during the events, she was throwing up from being stressed out. And she was explaining to her what works for her and things, and how my wife still battles anxiety. Like, daily, she goes through it. She doesn't like our sport most of the time, paragliding, all these different things. It gives her anxiety that something's going to happen or she's going to get hurt, and that, I'm not going to be there to take care of her because I'm a selfish, narcissist asshole. So ultimately, we're all going through this journey. We all are broken. And in our community, what I love the most, whether it's skydivers, base jumpers, paragliders, speed flyers, is we all have knowledge to give each other at the time it seemed most important and needed. And that's what I love about traveling the world.
You seem to have like a very fantastic life, and more than that, you talk like you have a fantastic life, and sometimes those two are two different things, because there are people who have great lives, but they're not grateful at all. They don't feel like they have great life. So if you could give some advice to somebody who wishes to have a great life, those are like yours, but in their own definition of a great life, what would you say?
Invest. Like everybody that I meet in the world wants to do what we do. Like you see, I say that I'm living the dream. I am. It's my dream. It's not your dream. And how to get here is everybody has a different road to get here. When you have money, look, and you're a kid or whatever it is, fucking invest your money. If you really want to live in a van and you really want to go travel the world, these air sports are not cheap, right? Like, an average skydive rig is 10 grand. My base rig is 5 grand. A wingsuit's $3,000. Like these things are not cheap. So it's not like being a rock climber back in the day. You could be a dirtbag climber. All you needed was a pair of climbing shoes and a crash pad. And you could sleep in your car. This is what I did for years. Yeah. These sports are expensive. So if you want to live in a van and you want to live the lifestyle where you can go do anything you want at any given time, you're going to have to either be really good at these sports and be a Red Bull athlete, or like me, you're going to have to make money. And during that process, invest it into different things, whether it's real estate, the stock market, inventing something, creating a business, royalties or whatever it is. Take that money, educate yourself, take accountability for your own life, and invest it so that in 5 years, 10 years, as you're following your dreams and making a little bit of money following your passion, that you're taking that money and you're investing it so that you can get that mailbox checked. That's all Sandra and I talk about. We just want to make residual income from the effort that we're putting in now. We want to get paid 10 years from now. So I would say to anybody that wants to live my lifestyle, it's not just a bunch of dirtbags doing drugs, traveling the world. First and foremost, I'm a CEO of 2 different companies, and I run my business tight. We get up at 4:45 in the morning, and we work for hours before we even go out and do our workout. And then I work out for hours, and then we go at around 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, we have breakfast, and then from there, we go on adventures for the rest of the day. And when we go to bed at night, we're fucking exhausted. It's you close your eyes for 2 minutes, like you're done. And I do this 7 days a week. I don't have days off. There are no days off, right? There is, like every day is a possible adventure. So I don't have this mindset that I'm going to do nothing tomorrow but watch movies. Sometimes I get lucky and it rains, and that's a natural ability for me to watch a Netflix and chill. But most of the time, it's honestly like, it's what you see. You think we live in a van and we're just chilling and we're not working. Sandra is a workaholic. She literally gets up. We get up 4:45, make coffee. She's working by 5:30 on her laptop for hours, and doesn't even go on adventures, and stresses out and gets anxiety because she's not working out, because she's working on her computer. Like, she battles her own battles, right? And we literally do this 7 days a week. And when she's not doing that, I'm dragging her to the new destination because I met new people, because we got to go on this adventure and we got to go film it. And so you want to do what I'm doing, then you need to be intelligent and have a plan. And if you know that you want to be a professional athlete, then we need to talk to other professional athletes and see what they make, because there's not a lot of people making a living from what we're doing. It's very difficult. So if I only had to rely on social media or sponsorships to be able to pay for my lifestyle, I wouldn't be able to, because it's not consistent. But because I had a business background before I started these sports, all the money that I make, I invested a percentage of it. And now I get to go do this full time. And I'm literally retired at 42 years old because I sold my property, because I have these investments, I have these stocks, and I have a set amount of money for the rest of my life. It's not a lot. It's like 5,000-6,000. Yeah. To some people, it's a lot of money, eh? But to other people, it's not enough to sustain, $60,000 a year between Sandra and I. It's not that much, or $70,000. But we average spend about $100,000 a year on our travels is what it costs us to travel. Here's some real math for you guys. So that means that I need to make about $40,000 from other social networks, from sponsorships, to do these different things that we do. We're just now in a position where we have enough money to do bigger projects, because we have some sponsors that believe in what we're doing, who are giving us funding to go out and create new projects. So, and at the same time, I built Captain Manicorn over the last 5 years, and now we're doing a merger with somebody who is going to be purchasing 51% of Captain Manicorn. And hopefully, if this all goes well, it will be a bigger content driving, more like a media house. So you have to have a business sense of mind, huh? It's not so like, it's just like base jumping. You have this perspective, like, 'cause I'm tattooed, I went to prison, I did a bunch of drugs. Like, no, man, first and foremost, I'm a businessman. Second, I do sports for a living. And third, you know what I mean? I just, the rest of that I love. So I enjoy everything I do. That's the point. I don't wake up in the morning like, "Oh, I got to work today." Like, I wake up like ready to get the day because I'm excited about what we're going to accomplish.
No, it's funny that you say that you're retired, but also you work 7 days a week. And I don't think that's those definitions matches most people's minds.
I think we all have to do something. Yeah. Like most people that become rich or whatever, and obviously I'm not rich, but they can become a philanthropist, right? Like you give back. So like most of your life you spend trying to make enough money to survive, to pay your bills, to pay off your college debts or whatever it is, right? And then maybe eventually you make enough money and you're a little bit more comfortable, and then you can start to give back. Yeah. So I made that money early in my career. So I started a nonprofit called Just Care More. Just Care More's whole mission statement is to create videos that inspire people. So somehow the government, the United States government of America, once I submitted the business plan that I wanted to go travel the world, I wanted to make inspirational videos of us doing all these adventure sports and send a message of positivity, of, resilience, of overcoming adversities. And then we were going to make these videos from our travels. And you submit this to the government. Again, read a book, open up the internet, like do your homework, right? They'll approved it and said, great, guess what? Now you don't have to pay state taxes anymore or federal taxes. So now you can go out. We're going to allow you to go out and travel the world. You can generate income from social networks, different projects. That money is not going to be taxed. You can take that money and you can go out and do more sports and more activities and more adventures and create more content. And guess what? Because you're giving back and making these cool videos and you're willing to do this, we're not going to tax you.
That's fantastic.
Mind blown?
Yeah, it's just like
smart.
Yeah. You are really smart, sure. But it's interesting how much structure and how much diligence and how much discipline is behind all those things that you do. And then, I think that social media sometimes is not the best representative of people because you just see the highlights of the greatest hits, but you don't see them work behind the background. So as you mentioned as well, it was 7 days a week. And also you seem to be really well structured, and that means you did your homework prior to starting editing.
But I don't think our people on our channel think that we don't work hard. I think that our channel is unique because I think we could be a lot bigger. We only have 500,000 followers. I think that we could be a lot bigger if it was Sandra walking around in a thong, shaking my ass in the van. And it was, that kind of content. I think that our channel would be much bigger. But I think that something about our channel is adversity. I think we share a lot. We hope that we share that our message is that life is hard, that we're all struggling. It was only the last year that my life has become more comfortable and I'm taking advantage of that. Last year at the same time, I was in debt. I was $60,000 in credit card debt. We maxed out our bills. I, had a property I was paying for that was just costing me money. And, we were all in. So it's not like it's like this like fairy tale story. It's like, I made $1 million. I spent $2 million. I'm in debt. Then I figure out how to get out of that that debt, and I make money again, and then I'm back in debt. And then, so it's like this cycle. And what you hope is that every time you repeat the cycle, that you learn something, and then you make a little bit better decisions so that the outcome is more in your favor in the future. And I think that is what I learned from prison. When you're young and you're in this game and you're in this sport, it's all about the moment, and we don't think about tomorrow. But as you get older and you have a family and you have, dogs that you care about and a wife that you care about, you start to want to protect your investment. And so you take less risk. So even though wingsuit base jumping or these air sports or mountaineering might look like they're high risk, that is the only high risk I like to take. Everything else is very calculated, from the business, from the traveling, from my family, from the way I make my life goals to my life plan. And that's what you want people to see through our channel, is like there is a way. And even if you work at a 7-Eleven right now and you're on minimum wage and you're in debt from student debt, it's like you feel like all is lost. But the very most important thing is you have to start off by, what is it that you want to do? What do you want to do with the rest of your life? And once you, I think, come to a conclusion of that answer, you need to make a plan. Right. And then once you make a plan and like it makes sense and it's actionable steps, the third step is start to do it, follow through with it. Right. And over time, you can start to see a trend. Like life is a trend. Yeah, we're going up and down, like a stock market. Yeah, like we're going up or down. But if you can see that the trend is going up, that what you're doing is working, right? Then you make adjustments and you keep on that path. If things in your life you don't like are causing a downtrend, then we try to make corrections, right? And we stop that. We stop that momentum, and then we try to get our life to go back up again. And then on the way up, we eventually reach our goal, or whatever numeric goal, or financial, or personal, or relationship, or sex, whatever it is, whatever your goal was, we eventually get there. But you had to follow that process. And then sometimes you get to your goal, and maybe it's a career, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's whatever it is, and you realize that this isn't what you wanted. The most important part is to remember, even if you're 40, if you're 30, if you're 50 or 60, that the most amazing gift we have is the ability of change. If you don't like your situation today, we as human beings have the ability to change the outcome tomorrow. That's power that I think that people forget, and I think it's a wasted gift that most people don't take advantage of. There are some people that are in poverty that have no food, that have literally it's a story, right? Rags to riches. But that person, I guarantee, who had nothing and then became rich, their story, it's the same as mine. They didn't like their outcome. They didn't like the current situation. They wanted change. So they made a plan. They had something that they're a goal, a dream, and they did everything, some good, some bad, whatever it took to get to that destination, right? And then once they're at that destination, you spend the rest of your life fighting for what you've built. So no, we're all somewhere in that circle of that steps, right? I call it like my 6-step program, like, identifying your dreams and then all the way up to hitting the reset button. I could talk more about that on a different day, but we're all, no matter who you are in the world, I don't care if it's Donald Trump, I don't care who it is in the world, right? We're all somewhere in this process. And if you can take a breath, identify at what stage you are in this process. Maybe you're working towards your dream. Maybe you don't know your dream, whatever it is. But if you can identify where you're at in this process, then you understand what to do next. And if you know what to do next, then we shouldn't be too stressed out and just enjoy the process. Because it's going to be hard. It's going to suck. You're going to get smacked in the face. You're going to get bloody. Things are not going to go your way. The best plan is going to get destroyed, and it's going to hurt, and things are going to go wrong. But if you can enjoy that process, then what else there to be sure? No one, I did years in prison. No one's trying to stab me tomorrow. No one's trying to rape me. I'm, you know what I mean? Like, what's worse happens? I make a bad business move, and I have a debt collector trying to come get money from me, or worst case scenario, I die, and Sandra has to continue on this awesome adventure on her own without me. Like, that's the worst case scenario stuff. So, like, what do you have to lose? If you find out your dream and you go all in on it, and the worst thing that can happen is that you're going to be right where you are today. You have nothing to lose. But if you're right, even just 10% right, and you risked everything for that dream, and you get to taste it, to touch it, even if it's not the version of your dream you expected it to be, think about where you could be at in 5 years. So when you have that approach, right, like I do, knowing that, that no matter what I do, that even though my business didn't make a lot of money for 5 years, I was still working towards my dream. It took 5 years to get to a point where my dream came to fruition, where I could I was, retired at 42 years old, because I knew 5 years ago that this is the steps that it would take for me to get to where I'm at. And I spent 5 years struggling, following my dream. And then when I finally arrived there, the reward was what I had planned on. It wasn't a shock, a surprise. I didn't wake up and be like, oh, like, you're tired. I was like, yeah, okay, I got to this milestone. Now, like, all dreams are only temporary, right? Because you can't live in that bubble forever, right? Because we naturally have to have more ambition or whatever it is. So hence we make videos now, long form videos, or we're working on more bigger projects, right? But the point is that, as a human being, I needed a goal. My goal was to be in a financial independent situation to where I could focus on making long form videos. We could help dogs. We can make videos that help children, help adults, help people that are getting out of prison, help people that are going through addiction, help people that have mental health issues. And they found something in what we're doing that sparks something in them to want to make a better life. And if one person sees what we do and betters themselves because of what we're doing, then fuck you, I win.
There's a lot of wisdom to cover there. A lot of wisdom. Thank you for sharing that with me. Speaking of goals and figure out what you want, I want just to briefly talk about your goal to fly a parachute in every country in the world. And I want to ask you, how did you manage to come up with that?
Well, I wish I could take the credit for it, but unfortunately, my wife's idea. So I wanted to travel the world already. I'm a traveler. I'm an explorer. That's a no-brainer, yeah? Since I was a kid. Like, I have friends in high school I told I was going to travel the world. And then, obviously 15 years later after prison and everything, I'm traveling the world. They're like, yeah, you're doing what you told me you were going to do. So I'm following my journey. And then there was places I wanted to go, like Africa, Zimbabwe, all these different places. And Sandra is terrified. She's scared of these locations, right? Because she has, valid reason to be scared. This is violent. Some of these places are violent. And so we were sitting in Romania, and one day she's like, it doesn't make sense what we're doing. Like, I don't find purpose in this. Let's just go record ourselves doing cool stunts. Like, there's already a million people out there recording themselves shaking their ass and trying to make a living from social networks. She's like, it has no purpose to me. And she's like, I'm going to drop a bombshell. She's like, what if we try to fly a parachute in every country of the world? I was like, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, first off, you're full of shit. You don't even like flying that much. There's no way you want to do this because you don't even want to go to these countries. She goes, I know, but that's why it's so cool. Like, what if that was our way to travel the world? Like, and I was like, I tried to talk her out of it for a couple of days. I was like, you don't really want to do this because I know who she is. I was like, you don't want to go to some of these places that I want to go to. And so maybe it was reverse psychology. Like, when she said it, I kind of like tricked her. I was like, yeah, it's a terrible idea. And she's like, the more I said how terrible it was, she was like, no, this is my idea. It's the greatest idea in the world. And I was like, yeah, I know, but I'm not going to tell you that yet. So then once, we rebuilt our brand to, this dynamic duo traveling the world, setting a world record to fly parachutes in every country in the world, she was hooked. She couldn't get out of it because it was her idea and she couldn't back down. So I've leveraged that over the last couple of years now because there's some places she doesn't want to go. And I'm like, yeah, but we are setting a world record to do these things. And she's just like, fuck you. So it's worked out in she's over there on the bed. It's worked out in my favor that we came up with this record. But ultimately, I think it was just a way for people to grasp how big our project is. If I would have said I'm going to every country in the world, like, people were just like, yeah, whatever. But when I say I'm flying a parachute in every country in the world and people say, how long is it going to take you? And I said, the rest of my life. People are like, what are you going to do when you're done with this? I'm like, what do you mean? What am I going to do when I'm done traveling to every country in the world following my dreams? I'm going to die. Obviously, that's all that's left to do. I've done what I wanted to do. Right. Like people ask me sometimes, they're like, and when you're done with this project, what are you going to do? And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean? What am I going to, man, I just, you know what I mean? Like, I've already done more than most people will ever do in their life. And I'm talking to you about something that's going to take me 40, 50 years to accomplish. And you're asking me what I'm going to do next. Like, this is it. Sorry. Is this not good enough for you guys to, to travel, to go to every country and experience different, 196 different cultures and meet people from all over the world and fly some of the most beautiful mountains in the world? What more am I supposed to do? So again, I have no other ambition, no other goals. I'm just going to keep traveling the world, climbing the tallest mountains and wingsuiting and jumping from them and flying from them and meeting awesome people and sharing our story. And, that's it. That's how that goal came about. And that's why I don't wake up, thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow. Because I just think about what I'm going to do today because I already thought about what I was going to do tomorrow yesterday.
Something that is really fantastic about your goal is the fact that the journey towards the goal, it's the fun parts, not the attaining of the goal in itself. So I think that most people have goals that they would wish to press a skip button, just go to the end. But I think your goal is so fantastic that just the journey of being towards it, it's worth being there.
It's an unattainable goal. Come on, I will never go to every country in the world. There's like 50-something countries in Africa and there's some of them I just have no desire to go to. And realistically, I'll probably never accomplish this. But the point is, it's the journey. I've committed to a journey, a lifetime of traveling. And that's what I think is cool, to be an explorer. It's really hard, if you think about like Christopher Columbus, he died depressed, and discovered the new Americas, right? Like a lot of these great explorers, they died depressed, not knowing what their accomplishments were. So and there's not much that's not explored or discovered in America or the world anymore. America, so the world, right? Like, with satellites and drones and people and budgets and helicopters, like we can pretty much get to anywhere in the world now. So everything has been explored. It's really hard to like be an explorer in today's society and explore something for the first time, right? then I don't have that big of a budget. So, at $60,000 a year, we have to be pretty thrifty with how we travel, right? So the only thing that is unexplored that I can explore, that no one else can explore but me, is my mind. And that's the journey. And these destinations allow me and put me in the situation to get to go further into my own mind than I would if I was just working a 9-to-5 job.
That's remarkable.
New Adventures with Captain Manicorn.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I was listening to a podcast about psychology before, and there was this idea that we as humans, we have a lot of unactivated genes, and when you go to a new situation, those genes get activated, and basically you develop new sides of yourself. And I think we connect really well what you said, just because you discover new places, put yourself in the new situation to discover your own mind at the end of the day, which is something really beautiful.
Yeah. Open-minded. Because of my past, I haven't a very open-minded. I have no judgment. I don't care. I don't think about religion, race, sexual. I'm not like people are so wrapped up with all this shit in their mind. It's not even something that I think about because it's the rest of the world doesn't care about all that stuff. It's just in our own backyard right now. The rest of the world is trying to survive how to make food or how to eat dinner tonight or how to put a roof over their head. And when we immerse ourselves into these different cultures, all of a sudden you realize what's important. And the people around you are what's important, your family, your friends, and providing, a good, safe environment for Sandra. She wants to travel the world. Then it's my responsibility to protect her and to make sure that my decisions are not putting her at risk because I want to accomplish something that she doesn't want to. So it's a teamwork, So it all boils back down to ultimately what will Sandra let me do tomorrow?
That's a good conclusion. How can people support you on this journey?
I'm not looking for support from anybody, to be honest. You don't have to. Do you, boo? I'm here to do me. I got this. I'm chilling. You can get off your cell phone when you're done with this and go outside and fucking run. That you can support yourself by you listening to what we're doing or watching one of our videos. Like just take an actionable step. Get outside and do something. Don't be inspired or motivated. Like make a decision. And that's how, if you send me a message and saying that somehow our channel inspired you to better your own life, then that's the biggest support you could ever give us, to know that our effort and our work has meaning, right? Like that's the biggest gift that, like, an artist wants, right? I want people to look at our artwork and to feel something, to feel driven, or to change, or to feel a certain way, or to evaluate your own life, even if you don't make a change, but it gives you the opportunity to evaluate who you are, where you're going, where you've been. Then I'm chilling, I'm not looking for nothing from nobody.
Would you like to direct our viewers anywhere specifically?
Yeah, outside. You can obviously follow our channel. Like, yeah, I want you to direct you off the goddamn couch and go outside and do something. No, man, I'm Captain Manicorn. You don't got to direct. Like, if you are still watching, we've been recording for an hour and 32 minutes. If you got to this part of the show, my name is Captain Manicorn. Just Google it. Right? That's all you got to do. You don't got to direct nothing nowhere. I appreciate you having us on, and I hope that through all the ranting and the chaos that I've said over the last hour and a half, I hope that there's one thing that somebody out there can walk away with that hopefully resonate with them.
Jamie, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Octavian.